Above all else, Filipino. Between the Asian and Australian continents lie the twin archipelagos of the Philippines and Indonesia. Together known as the Malay Archipelago, the 17,000 islands comprise the site of one of the richest resources in the world. Able to produce its own food crops, spices and other commercial crops, mineral resources and oil, the twins are among the most attractive sites to a greedy conqueror. To us, we are a group of small chiefdoms with a complex flourishing system of sharing the wealth of resource that our land has to offer. To the imperialist, we are a trophy to add to their treasure trove, to flaunt against all other emperors, conquistadors, and kings as a show of power for the sake of their own vanity. The ancient Filipino has Austronesian roots, largely Indonesian, but with close contact among Chinese, Indian, and Arabic traders crossing Taiwan. They are among the best craftsmen and traders of their time. What with the abundance of raw materials that they have at their disposal. Chiefdoms or barangays operate on well-developed socio-political systems that enjoy healthy competition with one another. Wealth and power move within their own ranks, and with the intermingling of chiefdoms and foreign traders for the exchange of luxury or prestige goods, the development of a cultural character that is truly Filipino became among the marks of the ancient elite. With this remarkable cultural character comes a language that represents everything truly Filipino. There were indications that, even before the Spaniards came, Filipinos were already literate. Apart from the chiefdoms having their own spoken dialects, isolated tribal communities, especially those engaged in heavy trading, developed their own writing systems as well. They used leaves and bamboo bark as writing implements. Ancient Manila, home of the Tagals, were of particular note because of their use of the oldest recorded writing system of the Philippines, the Baybayin. The Baybayin is perhaps the most significant proof of cultural excellence of the ancient Filipinos. While it is usually attributed to the Tagals, closer scientific investigations done by Spanish historian and politician Trinidad Pardo de Tavera, evidence of the Baybayin were also seen in the localities of the Visayas, Ilocos, Pangasinan, and Pampanga. Beyond the investigation of Pardo de Tavera, work has been done by a world-renowned expert in comparative linguistics in the person of Wilhelm von Humboldt. He described the Baybayin as a writing system that represents a language that has an impressive phonosyntactic system and with the most sophisticated usage of verbs. Yes, these are the roots of the Filipino language. Worthy of pride, the Filipino language represents as well the sophistication of Filipino culture. The abundance of verbs in its vocabulary symbolizes its value for action. Action that is dedicated to the stewardship of the country's rich resources. Second to verbs, the most common words found in the Filipino language involve the use of pronouns that represent the relationships among its people. Ako, siya, ikaw, tayo, kanya, atin. These are words that speak of equality in stature and gender. It is said that, as the Baybayin was used mainly for writing songs, courtship, and personal communication chiefly between individuals, it was not used only by a privileged class, but by everybody, men, women, and children alike. The arrival of the Spaniards in the 1500s marked a dark age for the baybayin and the Filipino language in general. While it brought Christianity to the Philippines, the political atmosphere of the time saw the gradual adoption of largely Western cultural elements into the already established Philippine way of life. The erroneous assumption of Westerners that native Filipinos are uncivilized and their lack of understanding of how the chiefdoms operate brought about long years of struggle and conflict. The small-scale political powers of the barangays proved detrimental, where Spaniards actively moved to seize the chiefdoms little by little. Eventually, as more Spaniards settled into their conquered lands, they began to transfer more of their culture to the native Filipinos, much more than just religion. With these changes also came the transformation of the Filipino language. Luntian turned into Verde, Bughaw into Azul, Aklat turned into Libro, and Awit into Kanta. In Jose Rizal's statement, after the colonization by the Spanish, Filipinos started to forget old traditions and old memories, and eventually they lost writing systems, songs, poems, and laws. It did not help that the Americans came into the picture as the Filipinos' benevolent savior against the Spaniards. Carrying centuries of despair, Filipinos would just about agree to anything that would contradict Spanish infusions. Unknowingly then, they succumbed to American imperialism, which adopted a debatable sense of exaggerated innocence in its motives for the Philippines. Instead of helping the people rediscover and revive its roots, it colonized the people through the guise of American education. As Filipinos learned to love the English language, they were led to believe that it is the language of industrialization. Americans convinced the people that its roots, instead of the bustling trade economies that the barangays once enjoyed, are more akin to an idyllic agricultural landscape, which needs to be protected against war and conflict. Tired of its long struggle with Spanish colonialism, the natives succumbed to benevolent assimilation. At the background, another imperialist moves: Japan. While Japan did not specifically have the Philippines in its bucket list, it was the presence of the Americans that caused the Philippines to be included in its battleground. Japan thought it to be its divine mission to bring Eastern culture to other parts of the world and to defeat the often too liberal democracy of Western nations. The Second World War then saw the Philippines succumb once more to imperialist rule. Without recovery from Spanish colonialism, the Philippines embraced American culture and language. All the more it did so when the soldiers of the Japanese Imperial Army killed its men and raped its women. The defeat of the Axis Japan by the Allied powers, of which the United States belonged, all the more convinced the Filipino of the benevolence of American imperialism, believing it to be the very thing that freed it from its oppressors. In utter forgetfulness of the ancient wealth of its culture, and with the baybayin all the more becoming a fragment of the very distant past. To this day, we celebrate English as the language of emancipation. It enjoys equal stature with Filipino as one of the official languages of the country. However, As modern nationalists continue to fight the good fight of Rizal, Bonifacio, and the Katipunan, as we regain our strength as a nation, despite the current challenges we might be facing, education sectors have now taken the step to reanimate the true roots of being Filipino. Filipino at mga wikang katutubo sa dekolonisasyon ng pag-iisip ng mga Filipino is a battle cry against what is largely white rhetoric, that Spanish is the culture of the civilized and English is the language of industrialization. If truly our conquerors were benevolent heroes, they would have added to our culture, not obliterated it. They would have promoted nation building as the symbol of our pride, not merely assigning this pride to Sampaguitas, Tarsiers, and Carabaos. They would have taught us the meaning of being freed, not just assimilated. Strength by strength, as the years now pass, our eyes are opened by the fact that only a true native can become the proper steward of its land. Above all else, us, not them. Above all else, our roots, not theirs. Above all else, we are Filipinos.